Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, 15 seconds. Here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Philip Chen channel. We are here live, brought to you live today to chat about interview prep once again. Today, we'll go through a few just live practice of my own story and how I communicate my story, as well as 3 tips to consider as you are on camera and how you might convey your story succinctly, clearly, and fluidly, with a couple of other tips of energetically what you might be perceiving or doing as you go through. We'll also go and look at a live company that I'm actually interviewing for in some of the questions that I think could come back up during this interview, and some questions that I, as the interviewee, might have for the interviewers. They'll change depending on the function as well. So real quick, my story is, hey, nice to meet you. In 30 seconds, I am a data-driven creative marketer that drives demand and has a lot of fun generating leads for fintech and SaaS businesses. My story is fairly simple. I started at a well-funded, large Fortune 500 corporation where I got to work with the best of the brightest. These are folks that thought strategically, knew how to get things done, specifically who to work with, how to manage relationships, and then how to use processes to think clearly, execute, and then iterate. These are folks across different functions with analytics, product, design, as well as agency partners that were only focused on what their specific craft was. And my experience at this large company was bridging the gap, bringing these disparate teams together behind one vision in order to solve problems or challenges for what our team was focused on. In my case, building the small business portfolio of businesses, net new acquisition numbers, supporting the ongoing life cycle of these folks, and then increasing the revenue driven, or the net TPV, PayPal speak, for the brands. So that was actually pretty long, more than 30 seconds, just to give you a sense of the difference. So let's try it one more time. Hey, fairly simply, nice to meet you. Fairly simply, 30-second elevator pitch. I am an analytics-driven, creative, and experimental marketer that's focused on, in my career, driving demand and generating leads for sales folks. Let's try it different again. Yeah, it's great. I'm a creative marketer. I love experimenting, and I love experimenting. And by that, what that means is running tests and using some very basic, nothing fancy. No, let's go again. Marketing is fun for me. I love marketing because of 3 main things. There's an analytic component, there is a brand and design component, and then there's also a sales component, a very strong partnership of using technology and information to I've got 3 main reasons why I love marketing. The first is the analytical side of things, and I'll get into that shortly. The second is the creative and branding aspect. And lastly, the fun, but really the sales side of things. So for analytics, the reason why marketing really thrives and drives me is because you get to look at data. Assuming your tracking and your budget and the platforms you're using are set up correctly, every dollar that goes in, you can measure and see the quote unquote blended ROI, or you can, depending on where you measure, top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel. You get to go and play with these. No. Analytics, as a marketer, I love analytics because it helps me, A, isolate challenges or opportunities. B, it gives me a sense of, is something that I'm doing working? This is directional. And C, it helps a business run. It's kind of like if you wanted to be a marathoner, or for example, if you wanted to be a professional basketball player, just to name some sports. You've got to have a base level, and then B, an attack plan with milestones specifically related to data, how fast you're going to run the next lap, how quickly you're going to complete the whole race, and then your training protocol. Marketing is very much in the same way when it comes to A, how much volume, how much traffic, top of the funnel numbers are you driving? You've got then middle of funnel, which is like, call it the steps to get to the end, to get to the sale. These are numbers that are within your training protocol. Every week, are you doing your 100 push-ups? Every week, are you driving your top of funnel 100 new visitors to the website? And then lastly, when you're about to terminate and finish the race to drive a lead past the finish line to sales, what's your conversion there? They might have come to your website. Did they start the application? Are you getting closer to your PR in the sports terminology? Analytics is a core part of marketing. But with that, analytics helps the experimentation side, the art of marketing, which is the creative and the brand side of things. That's so fun for me. Those are a little bit harder to measure, but if you wanted to get very clear, one of the examples that I did at one of the programs that I ran at InScribe most recently. This is the fun part, is I had a list of 2,000 people in our newsletter or our newsletter subscription. Not too many, but a good start for a startup company. I decided for 1 month to do a tip-based series to these 2,000 folks, specifically tip 1 of 4. Do this, click this button to subscribe. I had actually about a 10% open rate. So tips kind of worked, kind of didn't work. The next month, I tried speaking specifically to hot news. For example, did you know that AI is already being used by fraudsters? Something that kept someone's attention and changed my subject line. In fact, that increased my open rate from 10% to 15%, which is fairly good for a new, less engaged list. That's almost 50% growth. 5% more. Just by experimenting and getting to be creative. But if I didn't have the analytics, the data to be able to tell me it was working and not working, that would have switched things up quite a bit. And so creativity is also related to how something looks. That's a little bit of the art side of things, and may not be always wise to measure those parts. And then the last thing is driving leads, driving sales. It's pretty black or white. Driving leads and driving sales. Now, this is where a partnership with revenue operations is so critical, because what we're talking about here is an MQL versus a lead versus an MQL versus a SQL. I'll tell you what didn't work at Circle Up. At Circle Up, credit company, VC brand, VC company with a credit arm, we did not have a very clear funnel, which when I joined Inscribe, was one of the first things I tackled when I got there. And in fact, because of this, I was then able to drive more than just leads. I could now quantify an MQL based on a state of what a customer action that they took. And this in fact created more SQLs because the sales team was able to look at the behavior of these customers. Specifically, one opened a piece of content that we shared about a testimonial. That meant that they were more likely able to buy. Those emails reached a higher open rate at that point. So in all, there are a lot of different things about marketing. Shit. All right, so that's a part about the actual things. So a few different questions you might want to ask your interviewer. Enough fun there. If I were to be speaking to a head of analytics, head of data analytics at a company, one of the main questions I would ask would be, tell me a little bit about your team. Like, I think for all different types of folks, tell me about where Settle is today and how it got there. Or tell me about your experience working at Settle so far to date and the important milestones that got you to where you are today. Question for everybody. Then for a head of analytics, I might ask, hey, which KPIs or what are you measuring today that you're seeing very interesting trends within, or that you're seeing a month-over-month change in, or a quarter-over-quarter change? What are some of those numbers that you're looking at? Help me understand your philosophy of the difference between top of funnel marketing metrics, marketing analytics, and let's call product analytics, and then maybe we'll even call it credit portfolio analytics. Do all three of those fall under your purview? Are they different? What tools are you using right now to visualize analytics data? What's the process like to get a report created for a campaign, for example? That's one thing. Okay, now for a head of sales, or call it head of revenue. Tell me a little bit about how your team is structured. Do you guys have folks that are specifically inbound and folks that are specifically outbound? How many SDRs do you have versus AEs? Does your team have a base comp and then a variable comp as well? Help me understand, are those spiffs? Are there accelerators built in? Tell me a little bit about who you see as the main target ICP. What comes up most in a sale? Are folks calling in droves? Are folks calling in droves? Are people falling out after an initial call? Do you get ghosted? What's your ghosted rate? How many people make it past red lines, for example? As a sales leader, tell me a little bit about the dollar amount per loan, the general, call it average. Do you have folks that are specifically targeting higher revenue businesses between, call it 5 to 10 million? How do you compete against venture capital? Great. And then for revenue operations, tell me a little bit about the dashboards that you're created. What are you looking at on a day-to-day basis? hey, tell me a little bit about the funnel. Is the funnel split by top of funnel, middle of funnel, or customer success? Or we'll call it life cycle. What's your churn rate right now? Or what's your percent of folks that are coming back for another loan? Hey, help me understand help me understand what the average loan amount is. Do you have a sense of our customers, of where our revenue's coming? Are they coming from the top quartile of folks? Folks that are within, call it $5 to $10 million range? Are the majority of our book of business, are they within the 100,000 to 200,000? Tell me a little bit about the sales team and how you work with them. So quite a few different opportunities. And there you have it, a couple of YouTube video just chatting, 5 questions you might want to ask on an interview. These are golden opportunities to connect, to show your insights, and to also just be grounded. A little bit of the energy work that comes into interview is what first is important is you yourself feeling grounded and plain, in one plane. So for an example, one of my teachers, Scout Bartlett, teaches what he calls the live beam exercise, which is pulling a beam of energy from the center of the earth up to your sit bone and just feeling that connection, that root grounded. And then throughout the interview and throughout the time talking to who's on the other side, not only will that root help remind you of being present with this person, but also remind you to bring the energy to your heart, forward to their heart to build that connection through their forehead and top of the head, back down to you. He calls this the energetic loop. And you can start this energetic loop from any point throughout the day, any time before, and that helps being able to step into a rapport, to see the gifts of these other people. Because an interview it should be a two-way conversation. A conversation to be able to think and feel comfortable with your peers who you'll be working with on a day-to-day basis in many senses of the word. And then also someone that you'll be growing with, someone that you will be sitting on the front lines of the trenches to bring the company to the next level. In my time at PayPal, some of these folks that I enjoyed working with the very most were Wyatt Hunter and Katie Oceano, both on Dan Lieberman's SMB team. And what made both of these folks very different types of mentors for me, but at the same time strong people in what they did, were their ability to think strategically, their ability to have fun, to also build community, and then their ability to let their team shine by removing blockers, but then also having that strong hand to, for Katie, be very product marketing focused. I would see her all the time building connections with the product team, knowing what was coming up from the product roadmap, synthesizing what the product does into very clear marketing messages that then I could use within the PayPal.com website, within acquisition-focused paid ads for PayPal Complete Payments, for the PayPal Here product, across many others. Katie showed up with a smile on her face and still brought a side of her personality, which was the fun kid kind of side of things. She always had a little bit of candy to share, which I loved. Now Wyatt, completely different type of character. He was outspoken. He spoke loudly. He would let you know his opinion. He would say something directly to you. He would react and say, I don't like it. But behind all of that was a thoughtful person that was kind-hearted, a little sassy, but he knew his stuff. He knew the numbers, of the business, PayPal Here specifically. And then he knew where to push or where to tap people. He tapped me to help build out the PayPal Here acquisition store, which was really great. And then Chase Jones, the center of content. Those three were my people I actually didn't report into, but were my leaders. Two of the projects that I'm most proud of, one I know is still standing today, the Business Resource Center. You can find that in the top navigation of paypal.com. That was actually a project that wasn't assigned to me, but I saw a challenge, or I saw something that was happening process-wise within disparate teams, within the global SEO team, within the business Dan Lieberman SMB side, and then also within the PayPal.com consumer Patrick Adams organization focused. The main challenge was so many disparate folks were worried that PayPal weren't getting enough organic traffic. On the other hand, PayPal.com couldn't create landing page, couldn't create tailored experiences, couldn't launch articles, content resources easily, which was one of the actions we needed for acquisition. Because of that, I worked with Chase Jones, who led the content side of things, when I filled in on coordinating, kind of acting as a product manager for the website. And on his team, Alice wrote the articles. We went to Omaha and worked with the Help Center team to use their technology to build a completely new experience for the Business Resource Center. Not only was that first Business Resource Center creating the list of requirements, that also included, at the time, scaling this one experience across the EMEA, across APAC, across Asia, EMEA and APAC, so they too could also win on their search engines. When we launched this, we saw keywords for PayPal Working Capital. PayPal Working Capital did not appear on the first page. PayPal Working Capital did not appear on the first page of Google results for terms like how to find a business loan. That's what your customer, from the research that the customer success team did, voice of the customer, that's the kind of terminology that someone's going to search to find a business loan. Well, after we launched this Business Resource Center and specifically built it to rank for SEO, we were able to take non-including information about PayPal Business Loan that appeared on page 9 and brought it to the first page of Google search. It's not there anymore, sadly, so the team must have blown up, or the SEO team might have changed, but there are a lot of ways to get traffic that's for free, organic. That's a great way to start for businesses. Another strong win is within InScribe. At InScribe, one of the lead gen tools, one of the growth levers that I instituted and then piloted actually led to an increase of and creating a nurture series MVP led to a month over month increase of leads generated. Month over month increase of MQ wells generated of 15%. Now let's go. All right, there you have it. So happy to be live today to bring you this practice session. And we talked a little bit about creating your pitch, creating your story, storytelling. We also talked a little bit about what question to ask different functions, questions to ask everybody, because what you're doing is listening for the same answers, different answers, getting a sense of your peers. We talked a little bit about the energy involved. And then lastly, we spoke a little bit about specific stories or specific answers that you might share to highlight what you want. Thanks a lot for everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time.